Hi, Roland is the name, networking the game. Once again, you are welcome to my YouTube channel. We're learning the A to Z of network devices configuration, verification, and troubleshooting is guaranteed, as well as tips and tricks on how to authoritatively take full charge of your network devices. In the last video, recall that we drifted from router configuration to configuring switches, where my enterprise psl.com obtained some new switches and I was required to segment our LAN based on the department in my organization. We saw how we achieved this using Vlans. However, after segmenting the network, only users in the same department could communicate. In other words, communication from one VLAN to another was prohibited, and my boss wasn't fully impressed. In today's tutorials, we'll see what we can do to allow communication between users in all VLANs by enabling Inter-Vlan routing. This is achieved either by bringing a router or using a multi-layer switch and configuring what we call SVI or routed ports, a process which I'll cover in a later video. Specifically today, we'll use router and configure it as a router on a stick. Yeah, you heard me right, router on a stick, because only one physical interface is connected from the router to the switched network, regardless of the number of VLANs, to provide routing between all VLANs. Multiple sub-interfaces or virtual interfaces will be configured on the physical interface to represent each VLAN. After today's session, you'll learn how to create sub-interfaces from physical interface on a router, how to properly enter gateway addresses on user devices that are part of a VLAN to match their corresponding sub-interfaces on the router, how to confirm that devices in every VLAN can communicate with one another. Without further ado, let's begin. As previously stated, the boss of my organization, psl.com, was less than fully impressed when he discovered that after buying new switches and I segmented the network into various departments, staff in different departments were unable to communicate. Example, a customer rep staff was unable to send mails to sales rep informing him or them to attend to inquiries. Okay, so in order to circumvent this, I've brought in a router. Like I said, we'll configure a process called router on a stick. Now on this router, I'll connect a fast Ethernet cable to this router. From router to switch, that should be a straight through cable, okay, to one of the switches, any of them. Okay, now after connecting this, I should be able to log into the router, but like I said, I will log into this router via a console. Okay, that's what we've been doing throughout. Okay, so I'll connect a console cable to this router and log in. Okay, so I'll log into this router. Good. And I'll go to that interface on the router. I suppose that's interface fast Ethernet 0/0. Let me confirm that. Okay. Yeah. So now the first thing you do when you log into this router and enter this interface, is to enter no shutdown as usual to bring the interface up. Okay, and then you enter no IP address. Take note, this is very, very important. Now the reason why we do this is you are not giving IP addresses to the physical interface on the router, but IP addresses will be assigned to the various sub-interfaces on this router. Okay, and because we have 3 VLANs, we'll create 3 sub-interfaces out of these physical interfaces. Now sub-interfaces are just logical interfaces, they are not physical. Okay, so I'll go into the first one. How do you go into it? Now you go into it by stating the interface, just the same way you configure interface. Okay, interface f0/0 dot, the first subinterface, the number you give there, that's the subinterface you that's what will be used to represent the subinterface. In this case I said f is 0/1. Okay, but in order to, you know, to be uniform, to create a kind of uniformity or consistency with our VLANs, I think we started our VLANs for VLAN 2 from VLAN 2, so let's say fast ethernet 0/0.2. okay, now by so doing you can see that the prompt has changed to config sub if. What that means is that I'm currently on the sub interface mode for fast ethernet 0/0.2. now this .2 will represent my VLAN 2. okay, so now I can now enter my command encapsulation. Now this is very important. Encapsulation, we are using 802.1q encapsulation method. There's also ISL, but 802.1q is more commonly used. Okay, so you enter it, this is how you enter it, just encapsulation.1q. you don't need to type the 802.1q, it won't pick it. Okay, then you give a space and enter a VLAN ID that must be consistent with the VLAN number. Since I'm talking about VLAN 2 here, .1q2, very important. Now if I enter a wrong, if I enter 3 here or a different number that is not consistent with the VLAN subinterface I've created here, I'll run into trouble. Okay, I'm done with that. So I'll now enter my IP address. Remember that this VLAN 2, which is the crep VLAN, it's having an IP address from subnet 2 dot something. Okay, so I'll enter the IP address, okay, 172.16.2.2, 16.2.1. the first IP address normally is used as the gateway, so this will be the gateway address for devices in VLAN 2. Take note. Okay, and this subnet must be consistent with the address, is the subnet that's where the addresses on each host is taken from. I'm using subnet 2 here, so take note on those devices. I'm sure I'm having subnet 2. Okay, 172.16.2.1. then I enter my 255, I think we use /40, 255.2, slash 240, yeah, 255.255.255.240, that's /28. Okay, I'm done with that subinterface. Now what I'll do, I'll exit and create the next one, which is what? Subinterface. Now first of all, enter the interface. Okay, then interface fast ethernet 0/0.3 for VLAN 3. Okay, I'll now do the same thing by entering the encapsulation, in this case .1q3 to represent VLAN 3. Then I'll now enter my IP address. In this case my VLAN 3 IP address is 3.1. okay, 3.1 from subnet 3 dot. Okay, I'm done with that. Okay, so I'll go back and still create a sub interface for what? VLAN 4 interface faster than 0/0.4. Okay, IP address 172.16.4. Okay, before then, encapsulation.1q4. Now, why I have to enter this first is, if you decide to give an IP address before the encapsulation, the IP address will be wiped off. So take note, you have to enter the encapsulation command before you enter an IP address, or else the IP address you entered is going to be wiped off. Okay, so I'm done. Okay, now I'll save and I'll go back to this device and check my sub interface, and now I have to configure this interface here as a trunk. Very important. If this interface is not configured as a trunk, it won't work. Remember, I said a trunk link can exist between two switches or between a switch and a router. So I'll log into the switch and FA0/5, I'll make it a trunk. Okay, so let me log into the switch. Okay, interface F0/5. Remember, switch port mode trunk, switch port. Now, before we proceed, kindly pause for a few seconds, hit the subscribe button so that you'll get notified on my subsequent videos. Okay, so switch port mode trunk. Good. Now I should be good to go, but just to confirm my VLANs, show VLAN. Remember, you can see I have 3 VLANs. Sales is VLAN 2, CREP is VLAN 3, okay, and IT VLAN 4. CREP is VLAN 3, oh, I think I have an issue with the addresses here. Sales is VLAN 2, okay, and VLAN 2 is taken from 1 dot, okay. CREP is VLAN 3, which is taken from 2 dot, and then IT is VLAN 4, which is taken from 3 dot. So we need to go and correct those addresses. So sales is taken from 1 dot, IT 3 dot, CREP 2 dot. So 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot. Okay, so let me go and correct this here. As you can see, when I show running config, what do I have here? You can see my sub interfaces there. Now VLAN 2, I gave it 2 dot instead of 1 dot. VLAN 3, I gave it 3 dot instead of 2 dot. Okay, and VLAN 4, so I have to change my addresses on my sub interface. Wow. Okay, so let's go to the sub interfaces quickly. Configure terminal, interface, fast Ethernet 0/0.2, no IP address. Okay, so IP address is meant to be 172.16.1.1, okay, 255.255.255.240. okay, again I'll enter interface faster than 0/0.3, no IP address. Okay, now the IP address here is 2 dot, so I change this to 2 dot. Okay, interface fast ethernet 0/0.4 for VLAN 3, no IP address. You can see how to correct this. Okay, so I'll change this to 3 dots. Take note. Okay, so let me verify. Show running config as usual. Okay, 1.2. Good. So I'll save. Right. Okay, so right now I should be able to ping all devices. So let's try and ping from 2.2 to 1.4. That's from customer rep to sales. Okay, so this device is in customer rep. Okay, recall that last time we were unable to ping from devices in different subnets, or sorry, different VLANs we were unable to ping. So let's try it. Ping 172. Oh, you can see I've not given the gateway address. Last class we didn't talk about gateway when we discussed VLAN, because everything was meant to communicate, every device was meant to communicate within its specific VLANs. In this case, since we've now, devices need to communicate outside their VLANs or local LANs, there's need to enter a gateway address. Very important. Now the 2.1 I'm entering here, it's going to match the gateway address of the sub interface I configured for VLAN 2 on the router. As you can see, 2.1. Okay, I'll do the same thing for every device. Okay, so here 3 dots, I'll enter this device IP configuration. Okay, I'll now enter 172.16.3.1. okay, I'll enter this device, I'll log into this device. Okay, I'll now enter 172.16.1.1. so each device, the gateway is going to match the corresponding subinterface address on the router. Yeah, be patient for a while. We'll have to log into all these devices and enter a gateway address. Okay, 172.16.1.1. 172.16.1.1. 172.16.2, 172.16.2.1. 172.16.3.1. One 172.16.3.1. .2.1. okay, 172.16.3.1. 172.16.2.1. 172.16.2.1. 172.16.1.1. 172.16.1.1. okay, good. So I should be able to ping from this device to any device. Now let's try pinging from this device in CREP VLAN, which is VLAN 3, to this device in sales VLAN, which is VLAN 2. So let me ping from 2 dots to 1 dot. Okay, so I'll come here, command prompt, ping 172.16.1.4. Okay, you can see it's pinging. So I should be able to ping every VLAN, devices in every VLAN. Okay, let's ping a device in 2 dots, which is a different VLAN, 2 dot say 3. You can see it going. Let's ping a device in the same VLAN with it. Let's say 1.4. You can see it's going. Let's ping the last device here. Okay, so let me see if I can ping 2.4, this server here. So crep, okay, they're in the same VLAN. So let me ping 3.5 here. Crep, let's see whether crep can have access to the sales server. Okay, so I'll ping here 3.5. okay, so you can see that every device is pinging every other device. Good. Okay, so now before we proceed, let's verify we verified our configuration, noticing that every device can ping every other device, even though they belong to different VLANs. Okay, you can also verify using show running config. Let's verify our trunk link here on this device connected to the router. Show interface trunk. Remember, you can see that now we have two trunk interfaces, FA0/2 that is connected to the switch and FA0/5 that is connected to the router. Okay, fantastic. Now just to recap, we wanted devices to communicate between all VLANs. Okay, so we now had to do, there are two different approaches or three to do this. We can use a switch and configure or create what we call SVI, or we can use a router and implement what we call Inter-Vlan routing. I mean router on a stick process. Okay, so we use the router, we configure sub-interfaces on this router, okay, assigned IP addresses to these sub-interfaces to match their corresponding subnets to which the VLAN belongs, or to which VLANs they belong to. We also enabled encapsulation with the VLAN ID matching the corresponding VLAN number, and then we gave gateway addresses to correspond to the sub-interfaces created on each device here. And then we also configure trunk here. Now take note, these 4 steps are very important for Inter-Vlan to work. This is a very big clue I'm giving you. Nobody else will give you this. Ensure that you configure the sub-interfaces very well. Assign the correct VLAN ID to the encapsulation command. Configure your gateway addresses properly, and also give this address, I mean this trunk here, correct trunk here. Okay, so that's what we've done. We've also tried as much as possible to verify that every device can communicate with every other device regardless of the VLANs they belong to. Okay, and we also understand the concept between or behind Inter-Vlan routing. Okay, hope you had a wonderful time. If so, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more quality videos. There's still a lot of things to learn ahead, okay? And drop comments below. In addition, if you want a more comprehensive and advanced training, you can chat me up via the email provided. Okay? See you in the next class. Bravo and arrivederci.